Half a day. Today we honor those who fought to liberate our island, and we remember those who endured occupation with courage, kept faith through darkness, and held fast to the hope that better days will come. We give thanks for the generation that rebuilt Guam one home, one family, and one act of faith at a time. Their example reminds us that freedom is more than a powerful word. It is a sacred trust passed from one generation to the next, protected by sacrifice and paid for by the lives of those we never knew. So each generation inherits a Guam it did not build and carries the responsibility to leave behind a Guam made stronger by its choices. And that responsibility is now ours. In recent years, we have endured a pandemic that touched every family, a super typhoon that tested our island in a world growing more uncertain and complicated. Our trials are not the same as those faced by the generations before us, but the duty remains. You meet hardship with courage to care for one another, rebuild what has been damaged, and to keep moving forward. For both those beside today and those who will come after us, that is how we honor liberation. By remembering the sacrifices of the past while living in a way that proves those sacrifices were not made in vain. The Guam we inherited was shaped by courage, sacrifice, and love. The Guam we leave behind will be shaped by what we choose to do with that inheritance. May we prove worthy of it. Happy 82nd Liberation Day. May God bless the people of Guam, and may God continue to bless this island we are so proud to call home.
Liberation Day is a critical moment in our history. We look back with gratitude to those who endured occupation without surrendering their faith, their dignity, or their hope. We honor those who fought to restore freedom to our island. Guam's greatest generation withstood unimaginable horrors because of the better future they believed was possible. That is the promise of Liberation Day, that the burdens of the past will not be shouldered by our descendants. And our responsibility to the heroes who sacrificed everything for us is that we will always remember that love is stronger than hate, that good will overcome evil. As Guam's people have shown time and time again, our future is defined by how we respond to the perils of the world. Let's honor the sacrifice and service of our greatest generation and build a Guam that meets tomorrow with confidence, not fear. And let us gift the generations ahead with more prosperity, more security, and more hope than we inherited. That is how we carry liberation forward. We honor the past with our gratitude. We honor the future with our work. Happy 82nd Liberation Day, Guam. May God bless the people of Guam, and may God continue to bless the island we are privileged to call home.
Hello, I'm Paula Kerger, President and CEO of PBS. Congratulations on your 82nd Liberation Day. Today we honor something greater than any celebration. We honor resilience, the strength of a people who endured, who held on, and who carried their story forward across generations. Sharing those stories is why PBS was created and why our work is more important than ever. At PBS, we bring the past to life. We're rooted in local communities, and we honor the heritage that makes us who we are. I'm so proud of the work that PBS Guam does to keep the island's history alive for the next generation. This work is only possible because of viewers like you. Your support and your membership keep PBS thriving on Guam. Thank you.
Todo tempo manam ko in I Onra kada liberation. You know, the todo tempo usangongan niya sa modo na afay nanay manam ko tinahong niya. Tinahong sa ito di man masapit niya antes like masapit loke sa taon sinanaw. Tatao biyo, dos tatao biyo matay, nanaw biya matay, dan dos tiwan dos tiaw like man masapit. Estia in tiningo medyo sempe afagaigi gini. Sa taja ambesti manhoben afam faisin po di Guam liberation eza dilogin niya pafangimin sa besa pafan manunong manok and spare ribs. Eza mas tiningo niya timatungo na inainray manamko janafay manamko man masapit niya antes. Pananologi jan fagmentos jan manamko faisin historian niya. Sa jige estige na masuntungo sempi hafa man masapit niya manamko antes.
When they invaded the island, I was about 15 years old. At that time, I was heading toward the church, to attend the mass. That's right in the kiosk in Agana Plaza. Went in to attend the mass.
I was 11 years old. I was at the church in Santa Cruz. I don't know if you remember Father Roman. I was serving as an altar boy when we heard the sound of airplane. That's later on, Father Roman said that Sumay was being bombed.
I was 21 years old then when Guam was bombed by the Japanese. The island was in such a turmoil. We didn't know what was happening because we were never warned that something like that was going to happen.
Early December 8, around 8 or 7 a.m., I was playing with my brother on our little yard or the side of our house in Togay, Agana. We are waiting for my parents to take us to my auntie's house in San Ramon for their novena party. All of a sudden, my cousin came running from Mass and was telling my grandmother and my mother that the Japanese are bombing and are here on Guam. 3 Japanese airplanes are flying in Agana while everybody is just running and crying and don't know where to go for safety. My parents took us and the rest of our family to San Ramon and get the rest of the family, and we all hurry up to Agana Spring, Didige, to cross the trail in the swamp to go to our ranch in Mongon.
So all of us scattered, and I went. At that time, we were staying in Olali. We moved from Santa Cruz to Olali. So my brother was just a year old, Ning, the youngest in the family, Erovas. So I carried him on my back, and we start marching up to Barrigada. That's where we're staying now for 64 years in Barrigada, Lejang.
My youngest sister was at that time having her first Holy Communion, and my parents were running all over the place trying to find her. So finally, we got together and we split again. We went to different homes that we knew that were out of Agana. One of my brothers got lost during the invasion. When the Japanese landed on Guam, they were going to take my father prisoner. But we had a Japanese friend that had worked with the family and asked to have him kept with my mother until they found my brother, which they did. My father at that time was the deputy to the Public Works, and we had a moving picture theater, a soap factory, 2 beauty shops, plus their salaries. So it was a comfortable living. For that to be taken away from you, where we had to walk all over the place, had to shower in the open, it was quite a blow.
So our house is very close to the church. Got back right after the Japanese occupied the island, and we stayed at our house in Agana, and about maybe a month that's where we started up going to our property in Tuman and stayed there during the war.
A lot of other families are following as we reach to our ranch. Weeks and months, we have families with young babies and two bedridden old ladies. They couldn't get up. They moaned and cried, but nobody could do anything. Finally, they died and were buried. I was scared and could not do anything.
We are just four in the family, and we make an understanding that if the Japanese wanted someone to help them out, I would be the one so my uncle can stay, do the farming for our living, They sent us up to the airport at Alawak, that's NAS Sagana, where we labored there and fixing the airport, spreading out what the cash cow and other things is required for us to go out and work. So I was always the one that helping out. And able-bodied people, they were called up to go to Sumay. So we went to Sumay, and during the time we saw the people that were executed. After that, they took us over to down at Odot right in there, to help the Japanese duck in cave so they can use it for their hideout purposes.
We had 2 beauty shops, and I was given a choice of either I work in the fields or open up my beauty shop and take care of the Japanese women, which of course I was smart enough to take rather than to work in the fields. My brothers worked on the soap factory that we had.
Then 1942, then we were asked to work for the Japanese. I was 12 years old, so I started working at the NAS again, at the Tijan, what we call now Tijan, and my job there was to serve food and carry water to the soldiers. Then in 1943, I concentrated there working. Then we were moved to Canada, where the pilot stations are, So I moved there, and the thing is, my job is, remember the bamboo? Well, I carry water in that bamboo, and I give it to the soldiers. So I became friend to one pilot, and this pilot spoke very good English, and he told me that he was born in the United States, in California, and he went to Japan just before the war broke out, and finally he was asked to join the Air Corps, the Japanese. So this, I still remember the name, Homa. He's a pilot, So I asked me where I stay. I said I just live not far in Barrigara from Canada, just a little bit distance, So he went with me. So this guy, let me tell you, he spoke very good English, and he is the one that fits me with all the information, what's happening in the world, in Japanese. And I was named propaganda because I always said to my parents, about the news, about about this Homa. So we gave him eggs, and they gave us cigarette. So at one time I was working at the air base, and this was late in 1942, and his plane was just starting to take off. And there you are, American plane start to gas. He caught this guy before, yes. And this pilot, the Homa, called Homa, got hit. He died right there.
I am a survivor. I did not accept Hideyohito's march to Manyangon. I did not march to Manyangon. I had several meetings with life and death situation. I was wounded, and I sent 2 Japanese soldiers to meet their ancestors. Thousands of people were gathered around the Price School in Manila, from Dedido, Tamuning, Sinahan, all over. And from there, they marched to Manyangon. without telling anybody. I had my machete with me. I slowly moved away from our shack in Manila, went to the forest jungles of Manila. I stayed there to see my family. I decided to go to Maniangon, which was a real dumb thing. So I killed a pig, dressed it up, put it in a bull cart, had firewood, tangan-tangan, covered on top of it, and drove. And on the road, I saw a couple. His name is Segundo Sablan, with his wife, who was a Guamanian, Josefina Duenas. She was pregnant. I mean, she was really big. Can my wife ride with you? She's pregnant, and where are you going? I said, I'm going to Maniangon. He said, okay, so I'm going to Maniangon. So, okay, I cleaned that part of the bull cart. I was on the left side for Safina to sit down, okay? We turned left, we were going down, okay? Then all of a sudden, I saw a Japanese officer coming at me with a sword, okay? Segundo said, don't say anything, Primo. Let me handle this. And you know, he was an interpreter so he spoke Japanese. And he was wearing the interpreter uniform, just like military. So this officer started poking into the firewood. My blood turned into ice. Mine, I can tell you folks, I had that feeling. I mean, that was the end of it. Because these people love to use their sword on the Chamorro necks. I thought perhaps any minute, any second, my head was going to roll down that hill. Fortunately, Segundo managed to convince them that I was no problem. I figured he put his saber back, and he said, go ahead. So I went on our way. That was one area where I escaped.
We had already been transported to Maniangon, and we lived there for almost a month in the mud. There was only one stream that went through the camp there. We ate, we drank, whatever waste materials came to that stream, and that's the only kind of water that we were able to consume.
Our family is already in Maniangon, and we went to Maniangon, and that's where we knew really that the American has liberated Guam. Less than a day, we saw the invading forces, the armed forces, the American forces, you know, were heading toward us, and we were told to leave the place at Maniangon and go toward Finili. I have a big cow, you know, that has all our possession. Rope the car, and I help out my auntie start marching down to Finili.
We walked and walked and walked. Went up to the top of the mountain. We walked and walked since daybreak till about 4 in the afternoon. On the 3rd or 4th, 5th Bavi mountain, I kept saying to me, "What is there any future for this? Are we going anywhere?" And then I said, well, I put myself that I was on top of the mountain, on my way to find my pot of gold, and I will find it. Which I did late in the afternoon. I found it in the word freedom. I was free and free at last.
Everyone was looking forward to the liberation, the return of the Americans. And of course, I got caught up in the euphoria of, okay, the bombs and the machine gun fires have died out, and okay, they obviously are, Americans are back. So we're very happy, and everybody was happy until we met the first Americans. When the Americans found out that some had Japanese last names, they would separate those out, and those were sent to another concentration camp. I didn't have a Japanese last name, but because we were caught in a group that had Japanese, we were all thrown into the same prisoner of war category that were sent to the what is now the Naval Hospital area, and that was a huge concentration camp for Japanese prisoners, and I ended up there from Manyengun to the American concentration camp in Aguon Heights. For all the duration of the war, we were waiting for Uncle Sam to come back, so even though we had to suppress that feeling of joy and the anticipation of the Americans coming back for all these years, we were quite happy, and we looked forward to it until we found ourselves again. My mother and I found ourselves in front of some more guns and rifles, and we were being loaded up into a truck with Japanese prisoners and some of the Chamorros with that Japanese last names. And it was kind of frightening because we obviously were not the chosen few. And I instinctively knew that something more dreadful was going to be happening to us again, in spite of the euphoria that everybody was feeling about the Americans have finally come back. And I too was looking forward because, you absorb the feeling of your elders and your people, and we were happy. And then when we were in the concentration camp, which is a long story in itself, in the American concentration camp for Japanese prisoners, I was quite young, and I looked at my mother and I said, "Are we still happy the Americans are back?" And she looked at me. I didn't know whether she was going to hit me, spank me, or laugh or what. It eventually ended up kind of halfway laughing, halfway resignation, like, what can you do? This is an honest question, asked honestly from the eyesight of a young child looking like, okay, are we still happy? I don't know if we're supposed to be, because what we endured there was worse than what we endured in Manyengun. Children don't have a real grasp of time, as you know, but it seemed like a long time that we were in that camp. And if I were to tell you everybody who came to see my mother in the Japanese prison camp, the American camp for Japanese prisoners, it'll sound like the who's who of Guam society. Suilu, Safra, F.B. Leon Guerrero, all the Calvo brothers, the Parises, but the most devoted was Agada Johnston, who knew there was an injustice here, and she fought for us until we eventually got up. She said, this is wrong, and she fought for us, but it took a while before she could convince the military we were not Japanese, and although the others had Japanese names, they were Chamorros.
Well, my parents never mentioned or talk about what happened to me during the war. What I found out what happened to me was from my aunt, Tanelina Benavente. And she said, "Do you know what happened to you during the war?" I said, "No." So she sat me down and told me what happened. At that time, all the villagers were running to Talafofo when the bombardment started. And it just happened that a shrapnel hit me on the forehead and I passed out. I wasn't breathing or anything. And Tanelina told my mom, that I was gone already. Just to wrap me up and put me on the ground and cover me out with the tin roof. But Mom didn't want to do that. And Tanelina, Tan Rosario, my aunt kind of forced her to do that because my mom was carrying me and it was kind of heavy at the time. So she put me down on the ground, covered me with a tin roof. And then about a couple of days after the Marines stripped the island, the Marines found me crawling. And they picked me up and took me to the camp. And the Marines that found me put me up in the air and asked, "Whose baby is that?" My mom just saw the light, I never knew what happened Nobody talk about it. My sisters, my cousin, except for my aunt, just got the nerve to mention it to me. I guess it's because we're getting old, and I want to hear the truth about me. And I finally thought that the reason why my mom are so close because what happened during the war. My mom and I are the closest. That I know.
My entire life has just changed. I knew that we're being liberated. Cannot express how bad it is, I went through a lot, really. The greatest thing about liberation now is that we were liberated from the Japanese and the cruelty and other things, that it's hard really to put on. The main purpose there is that I want to see the people of Guam go back to their own posture, like before the war. I feel much better, comfortable, freedom of expression, freedom of everything that you can move on. It's the liberation that really counts. The U.S. is part of our life.
The word liberation, it's not a nice word. I mean, you are being liberated. It's a nice word, I guess, when it's used properly. Liberation, and I keep telling my kids, enjoy the freedom that you have. Maintain your dignity, because without freedom and without dignity, you are nothing. You are absolutely nothing. You're just somebody that's been moving around. But I keep telling you, no matter what you do in life, enjoy this freedom. The United States might not be the perfect country, but to me, it's the best. And I keep telling my kids, do not take it for granted, because you never know how great it is until it's been taken away from you by force.
Sasangan na David yu masangangan ni Famagon. Sa kintori ko great-granddaughter, and yung sangangan ni for the Guam liberation, faisin siya Marian, like nga, how often na sila liberate Guam liberation. Para tsuli, ko great-granddaughter, manalum za gugu, in why do we celebrate Guam liberation, za she get out atayte. She get atayte agaw, pisling nga, grandpa, now I understand. Now, again, David itan ni manamko, tas sige sumangani man hoben. Tori tempa na nayo gusbami manamko man makoni ulo gila masa, man ma-escort ulo, then sasangan na niya, then tempo niya gigeran todo, maulik na feeling niya sa I Onra. Ay, tipo di pamemfamboka ang todo niya na penata ni man babaylan niya. Siya ay main focus gi Guam liberation.
Before the cheers, before the celebration, there was silence. 82 years ago, these shores became a battlefield. Young men crossed an ocean they had never known. Neighbors became protectors. Survivors became witnesses. And many never came home. Today we remember them. The brave souls whose names are known, and those whose stories now live in our freedom. Liberation was not only a victory won, it was a price paid. And so today we celebrate, but we also reflect and remember, because freedom is not simply inherited, it is entrusted and carried forward with a responsibility for each new generation. May we never forget their sacrifice. May we always honor their memory. And may we remain worthy of the freedom they fought to defend. Para I Onra, para I Gloria. For her honor, for her glory.